We begin in Guinea-Bissau, and the African Union says it is concerned by President Umaro Sissoco Embalo's decision to dissolve parliament ahead of fresh elections. It comes after clashes erupted in the capital last week in what the president says was an attempted coup. So, was there another coup attempt in the region? And what's behind the latest instability in this tiny West African nation? We will discuss that and more with an expert in a moment.
President Embalo arrived back from the COP28 climate conference in Dubai with a clear message.
I came back immediately because of this coup attempt. But I can assure you that there will be serious consequences. There won't be another drama. The drama of February 1st is already over. All those involved will pay dearly.
Clashes broke out between the Presidential Guard and members of the National Guard as they attempted to free Finance Minister Solomon Saidi from police custody. He is accused of corruption. Several National Guard members were overpowered and arrested. President Embalo blamed the attempted coup on an alliance between the National Guard, led by Colonel Victor Chongo, and the opposition.
Chongo was surely sent by someone because he's not crazy. Even if he's stupid, he's not so crazy as to blow up the judicial police gate and kidnap Suleiman. On Monday, a commission of inquiry will be set up, and you all know who's involved in this coup.
There are fears that this latest unrest will mean more instability in a country that's already politically fragile.
To help us understand what's happening in Guinea-Bissau, we can bring in Vincent Foucher. He's a research fellow at the French National Centre for Science Research. Welcome to DW News Africa, Vincent. Can you explain the background for us? Because President Embalo says that the parliament is behind a coup plot, while the opposition says that his dissolution of parliament is a constitutional coup. So which version of events is true?
Well, a coup is a very fashionable accusation to make these days in West Africa in the context of the other coups. I guess you could say that neither accusations is true or both accusations are true. What we've seen is actually the National Guard going to take away, rescue two government members from the judiciary police, and then the presidential guard taking on the National Guard and taking the ministers back and putting them back in detention. So, you know, a lot of that is troubling and certainly not according to process. But I do not see really a coup in the sense of an attempt to take power by the parliamentary majority of the PAIGC. In terms of the constitutional coup, well, yeah, the president basically took the occasion to announce the dissolution of the parliament. And in this instance, actually, the constitution is pretty clear. The parliament cannot be dissolved during the first year after the election, and we're only 8 months after the election. So, you know, the constitutionality of the president's decision is indeed very doubtful.
And this isn't the first time President Embalo has cried coup. He survived an attempt to oust him in 2022. What happened there?
Yeah, I mean, Guinea-Bissau has a history of coups, of course. There was also claims of a coup in 2020 as well. In 2022, however, in February, there was armed incidents in the presidential palace. A number of security forces members were killed. And Embalo and his partisans basically said this was a coup attempt. They denounced the PAIGC, the majority in parliament, and they said that drug dealers were involved as well. And the PAIGC retorted that this was indeed a battle between drugs lords, but that Embalo himself was one of them, or that this was a false flag. It turns out I have new information now, just of recent actually, about this 2022 event, because the son of a former president of Guinea-Bissau, Malamba Kaisania, so his son, who's called Malamba Kaisania Jr., is under investigation in the US for both drugs trafficking and the 2022 coup attempt. So there was indeed an element of a mix of politics and drugs. Bakai Junior was also a PAIGC member. Of course, the PAIGC is a historical party in Guinea-Bissau, so it's a very large tent. There's lots of people within that party.
Vincent, instability has blighted Guinea-Bissau since it became independent from Portugal in 1974. Why does the country have such massive problems? You've alluded to the drug trade.
Well, it's a very small country. It's a country that's sparsely populated, and it's a country that attained independence through a devastating war against Portugal. So, of course, in this context, it's been very difficult to develop a dynamic economy. And in this context, the state is pretty much all that matters for the people with an education. So people fight very hard around the state. I mean, a few people in Guinea-Bissau, in the political and military class, basically, really fight hard to keep control of the resources. And this gives the fighting around those limited resources a sort of desperate dimension. If you're not in power, it's going to be difficult. And of course, another legacy of this war of independence is an overweight military, a very large military in comparison to both the population and the budget, and a military that has a very strong sense of legitimacy. They feel entitled because they were the ones who liberated the country, even though there are very few veterans left by now. So those structural factors certainly are a strong part of the problem. And then, of course, the way in which the leaders have ruled since independence in 1974 is also part of the problem. The choices they've made, obviously, have not allowed to transform the situation and to sort of create a better dynamic.
Thank you, Vincent Foucher, for that insight and analysis. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Guinea-Bissau, just the latest military-associated jailbreak in West Africa, with two others in November, Guinea and Sierra Leone. The wider region has seen coup after coup. In the last 4 years alone, there have been 7 military coups in Western Central Africa, Guinea in 2021, Burkina Faso in 2022, and most recently Niger, where the military seized power in July. Chad and Sudan also experienced military coups in 2021, and Mali saw coups in August 2020 and again in 2021. But some coup leaders do face justice. Mauritania's former president, Mohamed Ould Abdelaziz, led the West African country for a decade after coming to power in a 2008 coup. Now he's been sentenced to 5 years in prison for money laundering and illicit enrichment. Abdelaziz was an ally of Western powers, fighting Islamist militants in the Sahel region. He denied the corruption allegations.